Sports anime and manga have existed for a very long time, dating back to 1928 with Animal Olympic Games up to now. The genre has evolved over time, with defining titles cropping up every few years, such as Hajime no Ippo, Slam Dunk, and Haikyuu. All of these series share common traits. There's always an emphasis on the importance of teamwork, selflessness, and good sportsmanship. Despite members of a team being made up of individuals, it's constantly conveyed that you need to homogenize with your teammates or those around you in order to succeed. Sports series such as Kuroko no Basket slightly deviate from this trope. The members of the Generation of Miracles are shown to be extremely self-absorbed, and they believe that they and they alone are all that is necessary in order to succeed. As the series goes on, the Miracles learn to play with their teams and for the most part lose their sense of selfishness for the sake of winning games. Compared to the titles I mentioned earlier, which are genre-defining, Bluelock is a series that is utterly genre-bending. It forgoes the ideas of teamwork, sportsmanship, and camaraderie in order to put a large focus on the concept of ego, as well as a heavy focus on individuality. The story of Bluelock is seen through the lens of the main character, Isagi, and it takes place after Japan's elimination in the 2018 World Cup. Frustrated with their constant losses, a project named Bluelock is created, with the sole purpose of producing the world's greatest striker and destroying and remaking Japanese football as a whole. In the first chapter, during a qualifier under 18 game, we see Isagi hell-bent on scoring a goal, but is reined back into reality by his teammates and coaches, coercing him to pass the ball instead of taking the shot for himself. He reminds himself that football is a sport played by 11 people, seemingly feeding into the sports trope of relying on your teammates, and by passing the ball, the game is lost. Later on, we see Isagi questioning his decision, as well as the belief that football is an exclusively team-oriented sport. We see him dealing with the crushing reality of his defeat, but not all hope is lost due to him being invited to the Bluelock project. It is made extremely clear through the character of Ego that the concept of teamwork is valued too much, and that players should rather rely on themselves. The notion of ego is usually negative. Things like overambition, arrogance, and self-centeredness are looked down upon in general, but the mindset of being the best is necessary to have in order to be an exceptional player. You'll see this belief occur a lot in sports or anything with competitive nature. Players like Pele, Cantona, and Noah all have an air of arrogance about them, and coincidentally they are some of the greatest football players to ever live. Another example is Kobe Bryant, an extremely arrogant and self-centered player on the court. These attributes gave him the confidence to believe that he was one of the greatest players in basketball, and his talents lived up to that. Ego states that what Japanese football lacks is ego. Japan is a country renowned for its heavy focus on the concept of humility and teamwork, and this is apparent through its working culture. It's suggested that in order to become the greatest striker, you have to forego the cultural norms you've grown up with and adopt an ego and the mindset of being the best player. Made clear through its training programs, Bluelock's main motif is evolution and change, and the main character, Isagi, perfectly encapsulates this. Through rigorous training, players begin to evolve rapidly as they develop an ego. These take the form of quote-unquote weapons, which are for the sole purpose of increasing their goal-scoring capabilities. These range from things like Nagi's ability to trap the ball, killing its momentum and making pinpoint shots, or Batshuayi's ability to dribble and get past any defender. The power system in Bluelock is done exceptionally well. It's creative and balanced while drawing inspiration from real-life players. In the case of Isagi, his weapon is the ability to constantly perceive the pitch as a puzzle. Puzzles are designed to test ingenuity or knowledge, and upon completion, improve cognition and visual spatial reasoning. This ties in perfectly with his abilities. By being in the middle of a constantly evolving puzzle, he's forced to adapt and learn while imposing his significance as a player onto the board with his ego. His ability to assess as well as insight change, which I mentioned earlier is a large theme promoted in Bluelock, sets Isagi up perfectly to have a deuteragonistic relationship with hard-headed, extremely self-absorbed characters. For example, Barrow. We first see him taking initiative during a squabble and blasting through the chaos with seemingly no thought, followed up by telling Isagi to move or he'll die. In contrast, you have Isagi who's been doing nothing but observe the hunger and ego of his team that are trying to steal the ball from each other. Barrow goes as far to call himself the king of the field after scoring a goal. This is the first real example we see of having an ego resulting in someone progressing to achieve their goal. He was able to do what he did due to his confidence in himself to score that goal and nobody else. With this realization, Isagi is able to develop his ego and selfishness, reaffirm himself that he's a striker, and score score a goal. And I'll take this moment to touch on bluelock's art style. It's absolutely phenomenal, and there are so many amazing panels and spreads. And something I've noticed is that when a character is enveloped by their ego, they're depicted as monstrous and dehumanizes them, Rin being a perfect example. It's almost as if you can visibly see their hunger. Bachira's monster, which I believe to be a visual manifestation of his ego, looks extremely similar to these characters when they're determined to score a goal, which I think is a nice instance of symbolism. While there is emphasis on the importance of ego and individuality, it's important to not be consumed by your own ego, and as a result, teamwork is necessary to an extent, but handled extremely different compared to other series. In a team sport, players work together to score a goal, while in bluelock, players work together to score their goals. For instance, in Kuroko no Basket, Kagami and Kuroko play off of each other to score a bucket for the team, while in bluelock, Isagi chooses to devour and use teammates that are useful to him in that moment so that he can score a goal. For example, Barreau's confidence peaks to a point where he's stealing the ball off his teammates, and his pride refuses to allow him to play with them. However, the consequences of these actions leave him essentially powerless on the pitch, as Yorichi and Nagi refuse to give him the ball, and he's even used as bait in order for Isagi to score a goal. Subconsciously, he passes the ball to Isagi and his pride is shattered. He has an epiphany in the middle of the field and uses Isagi as a stepping stone to score a goal by devouring him, as Isagi just did with him. This is a good example of Barreau technically using teamwork, but he still retains his individualistic nature and ego. It's shown that within the equilibrium of ego and humility, exceptional players are born. Your ego shouldn't be in control of you, but rather the opposite. An example of this is Nagi abandoning Ryo despite their great relationship. Instead of refusing to believe that he was outskilled, he accepts the loss and joins Isagi. His ability to accept loss allows him to play with Isagi, and as a result he was able to evolve as a player. Ryo was also motivated to find his own way of football and develop his own techniques. Isagi himself maintains this perfect balance throughout the course of the series. His ability to break down the field into puzzle pieces allows him to pick the optimal players to use in order to help him achieve his goal of becoming the best striker, and he's able to seemingly flip a switch and become an egoist in order to do so. On the other hand, when he needs to be, he's shown to be a rather cohesive player on and off the field. Characters tend to gravitate towards him due to his personality, and this develops into his teammates gravitating towards him on the field, increasing his own and their own goal scoring capability. Bluelock is a truly exceptional series and has quickly become one of my favourites of all time. The beauty of it lies within its extremely unconventional and experimental nature. It breaks the mold and not only gives people a whole new perspective on the sport of football, but the concept of ego and selfishness as a whole. And if a series has given you a new perspective on something external, then it's doing something right. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.